Hello, Reset with Raven family. You are in for a treat today. I am joined by Kellina Powell, and Kellina is very extraordinary. And one of the things that we're going to start off talking about is her superpower. Tell us all what your superpower is.
My superpower is honestly being a deaf person.
Okay, okay. So tell us more. Like, how has that like impacted your life?
It's such a very crazy story. I tell people, be ready for popcorn. So, I became deaf at the age of 4, and my life was a roller coaster ever since. Being at 4 years old, I was not able to hear for 3 days. For those who are wondering, how did I become deaf? I actually became deaf due to an infection when the daycare did not follow instruction of my eardrop prescription or the instruction. And that same day I went home, I became deaf. That was something that like just really blown my mind to this day. And I'm thinking like I became deaf just because of an infection and the daycare didn't follow instruction. It's
You
crazy.
said the daycare didn't follow? Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Okay.
yeah. The daycare did not at all. Did it. So whew, get ready. So I went to the family doctor the next day to see if there's anything that they can do. My family said, no, there's nothing we can do for Kalina. She is completely deaf. So I literally just was clueless, especially at 4 years old. I didn't know what's happening because I couldn't hear. And I couldn't hear my own family. I couldn't hear my own mom talking to me. Like, it was just so devastated. And my family was just trying to figure out a way to help me. And my family doctor recommended a lot of audiologists, speech therapists, because they said that as soon as I get the hearing aid in my ears, my voice will be different. I would hear different voices. And I did hear different voices as soon I got a hearing aid in my ears, and I had to relearn a lot of people's voices all over again. And it was very interesting story that I had to go through, especially going to school, being bullied in the hearing community versus the deaf community. So that was very interesting. A lot of people didn't think I could go to two communities, and for me to learn how to have so many personality in two different communities, and how do I fit with the community, the deaf community, how do I fit with the deaf community, like how do I go above and beyond with the deaf community, where I actually stopped going to deaf school in grade 2 and went to the hearing school full time without any support from my deaf community. So that was something I had to go through all along, basically.
One of the things you said that it like piqued my curiosity. I've heard that most people don't remember like before the age of 3 unless something traumatic happened to them. Do you remember being able to fully hear?
I remember few things, not everything, but few things. Something that would make me feel very like trigger, I would say. But I would remember anything that made me trigger, like my hand loss. It's like, for example, you get into a car accident. You will never forget your first car accident. It's the
Mm.
same thing for me.
So, going through school, what type of adjustments did you have to make? Or and also too, how did people adjust around you, or did they?
Okay, so for the deaf community, for the deaf school, it was really very funny because not everybody speak. So everybody had to learn how to communicate with sign language. They're muted, so we have to write on the board or how to have a piece of paper write it down. There's some kids that didn't know sign language at all and just were completely mute. And so that was a very funny and interesting way. For me personally, for the deaf community with the teachers, a lot of the teachers were not deaf. And so they had to learn how to kind of communicate with us. It's kind of interesting how a hand person can really go above and beyond for students who are deaf. And first at the hand community, it was very challenging. I never knew what I was doing because I didn't have everywhere I go, it's all hearing person, not one person with deaf where I can kind of relate to the lifestyle, where I can meet friends with them. However, I didn't have a lot of close friends who were hearing, and they always defended me no matter what I need. Always defended me, and I remember I got bullied I got bullied one time for something, and then I remember my best friend came up to the bully in front of me. I think the bully pushed me down the hill, and that's when my best friend was like, "Are you crazy?" And I think she pushed him down the hill, or she slapped him across his face. I don't. And then I was like, "Why did you do that?" And she said, he deserved it." Wait, I don't remember. Man, I'm in grade. I think I was in grade 1 when that happened. So I learned how to stand up for myself because of my best friend literally stand up for me and made me feel more comfortable to stand up for myself.
And now you're a young adult and entrepreneur. So talk to us more about how learning to stand up for yourself and those experiences have really shaped like who you are and what you do now.
I would say it literally all started by two scenes. So the first scene was I was in university and I had a professor. He paused the lecture, and said, "Hold on, I need to change my hearing aid battery." No one knew he was deaf because we couldn't hear his hearing aid. His hearing aid was um, it was one of those like unseeable, like you can't see it, but it's a hearing aid, like a very small one. And he paused the lecture, said, "I have to change my hearing aid," and I felt so comfortable because it made me feel confident. And I went up to him and I said, "Hey, like, how did you feel that confidence?" And he said, "Just like you. You just came to me. I didn't know you were deaf, and you're my student. You never know who's watching you." And that's what made me realize, I'm like, "Oh my god, he's actually so right." Imagine if I didn't approach him and said, "I'm a deaf person too." No one would have known. He would have known. And that actually came with me to this day. And that's when I realized, like, I realized a lot, like, what if I take my passion in terms of helping people and turn into a mental health coach and help people in my community or even the other community as well. And because you, like he said, you never know who needs your help or who's watching. And I took that in and I said, wow. And the second scene was when I was working at a big park. It's called Canada's Wonderland. And the little boy came to me. He was deaf too. He had hearing aids. Came to me, he's like, "Miss, I'm deaf too." And I'm like, "Oh my God." And we had and we were talking. His mom came full of joy and she's like, "You're deaf?" I said, "Yeah, I have a hearing aid." And I showed her my hearing aid. And she was furious, like, she was like it was so beautiful. It was really cute, unique, story ever, and, me and her had a small talk, and she was just like, "It's so weird to see a deaf person in a hearing community. I've been educating my son that he can do anything he wants, but he's always doubting himself, saying that he won't be able to do what he wants to do because the environment that he's in, and there's not a lot of deaf person in hearing community." So that made me the reason why I went to do my entrepreneurship. And when I started my journey, there was a very few challenges, obviously, because I have to interact a lot with hearing community. So I had to tell people how to be inclusive for me. So it was exhausting by telling people, "Hey, can you put closed caption? Hey, can you put closed caption?" At the end of the day, I realized that I was actually teaching people when I tell them to do that, and they never knew because they never met someone that's deaf. So it was really cool and unique that I was able to teach other people, and it made me like kept going and teach other people, and even beyond podcasting, to talking and teaching people.
So in terms of teaching people, what are some of the, I guess, everyday things that we utilize or we possibly listen to or just are in our everyday environment that are not adjusted for people that are deaf, or sometimes people forget to make the like put the closed caption? What are some things that like and also too, I think it's interesting as you're speaking when you're like the hearing community or the deaf community, because I've never even thought about it as a hearing community. So what are some things that like people are like oblivious or unknowing to, like, because I had someone tell me like make sure that my website was for people that were able to that aren't able to, I think it was not able to read, or make sure that they're or see, that's what it was, for the vision impaired, to make sure that my website had that. And there's just things I didn't think about. So I'm curious, like what are some things that people need to be aware of, like if they are interacting with someone who is deaf, like make sure that you have these type of, and just kind of thoughtfulness, maybe that's a better term.
There's so many things I would say, but I'm gonna say top two. The top
Okay.
two is don't assume that every deaf person knows sign language. I know a lot of people
Oh.
try to fake the sign language, but they're not doing sign language. I'm like, what are you doing? And and don't make up the slang, you know? And I know some people try to, yeah, some people try that. I'm like, that's not sign language. What are you doing? And I tell people be careful because you are making fun of the ASL language, right? So you have to be really, really be careful when you do that. And secondly, I would tell a lot of people do not raise their voice when someone said pardon. I noticed that a lot of people raise their voice when I say pardon me. They raise their voice like, can you hear me now? I'm like, I never said raise your voice. I said pardon. Can you repeat that again? So I do want the hand community to be mindful of that.
Oh, that is good to know. And I wanted to ask a follow-up when you talked about the hearing aids. So what for the people that are listening or watching and they're like, okay, so you're deaf. Does the hearing aid like add a percentage? Like, okay, now you're with 10% hearing. How does that work? And are all deaf people like eligible for? I'm sure there's different types or variations, but how does that work in terms of it? Like, is it like partial deafness or complete deafness? How does that work?
Very good question. And hearing aids comes in different forms in different ways. And for someone who there's different level of hearing that a lot of people need to be aware of. So I'll give you myself. For example, I am severe profound hearing loss. So what that means is if you look at the audiogram, your hearing testing, I'm at the very, very bottom. So which means I have no hearing in my ears at all. So what the hearing aid it helps me hear 90% better.
Hmm.
Yeah. So for those who are in the middle, don't really need a very strong hearing aid that require them 90%, where they could just get a hearing aid that can help them hear 50%. So yes, hearing aid do help you hear by how it's depending on your hearing loss. It really depends on you. And hearing aids are very, very, very expensive. I tell a lot of people that not everybody can afford the hearing aid that they need. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
for example, my hearing aid is $7,000 each year. So yeah, so my hearing is extremely expensive because it had Bluetooth. It had, and because I am completely deaf without my hearing aid, it's very hard for me to get the right hearing aid materials. But because I'm in Canada, thank God for benefits, healthcare. But in the United States, my community told me that a lot of them don't have access to the correct hearing aids because it's too expensive. And I couldn't imagine, having to pay out of your pocket money to afford a hearing aid that you need. So some people have to go lower down their standard and get not a good hearing aid for them, but something that they can afford.
That is good to know. And I had no idea how expensive hearing aids were. Wow. Um, Another thing, as you were talking, made me think about when you said community. So, where are you finding communities? Is it online? Are these people that you've gone up with? Because you also said like community, like, and you like alluded to like the US or having friends community there. How have you like found these communities?
How? Honestly, to be honest, I don't know how. It just give it to me, but I obviously it started off, with Instagram, social media, right? And you can find everywhere, find people, podcasts, and it's just really about how you are. But because of COVID, everybody was on social media, so I just got lucky, like being on social media. So that is how I did find my community. Also, too, most importantly, Facebook group. Facebook group is really helpful a lot. Not a lot of people thought about that, but I do recommend a lot of people check out Facebook groups, see what it is out there.
Okay. What would you say? So, for someone that's listening, maybe they're not deaf, but they have a disability, And as you talked about the um, woman that came up and the child ran up to you, what do you say to people that feel like life is already hard and I have a disability? What is your perspective on like how and I noticed and I love how you know, I saw this on your Instagram, like how you called it your superpower. How have you been able to like shift or reset something that many people would seem as like, oh, something else to, be in my life that causes me challenge and difficulty? How have you been able to reset your mind and how you view the disability and say, hey, I'm going to use this as a superpower? What do you say to someone who is like going through life and feels like I have something else to be a challenge for me?
I would say my advice would be say, find out what you are struggling with the most. Find out what you're good at. And sometimes when people always think so much. A lot of time it's good to have it on a piece of paper to kind of separate everything and see what it is and be like, oh, this is why I need to focus on more. And I feel like because we are too caught up in the past where we should be caught up in the moment. And this is where
Mm.
a lot of things happen because it happened to me before too, right? Even when that mom came to me, and then and I told her too, you know, get your son into the deaf community, and get into the community center because there's always going to be a community center somewhere near your house. You just never know. You just really have to look, and that's why I tell people: find the right people that support you. That's very important. A lot of people don't do that. Sometimes you do have to change the right people around you, and look up online and see if there's any community center that you can participate in, even volunteer your time, to learn new things, meet new people. And I used to do that a lot of time in university with volunteering a lot, meet new people. And that's how I we learned a lot of things about my lifestyle. And sometimes, because for me who's super fresh as a young adult, I had to really unlearn a lot of things I did in school because not everything in school was meant for real life, and
Mm.
that's what I learned.
Have you had some type of aha moment or like big epiphany of like, oh, I can see clearly now? Or would you say things have happened for you over a period of time?
Yes, a lot actually. For example, I graduated from psychology degree. The tools, the assessment, I did not like it. I was just like, there's no way you can understand the person by asking them those tools, those questions. And when I got into volunteering for the clinic, the private clinic, and I was talking to the psychologist, the therapist, and a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist said something to me. It was very funny. He said, certain questions you learned in school are not relevant. And I'm like, really? And he said, sometimes you can't get a deeper understanding of what you're looking for. Sometimes you have to play around with tools to find out what they're really looking for. And I was like, that is so true. And then that made me realize, do I really want to become a psychologist? Because that's not what my goal was. My goal was to really help people. And I finally figured out what it was. I actually want to focus on positive psychology and my mental health coaching business. And with coaching, you can do whatever you like, but you don't have a strict rules of like questioning how to do a session. Like it's just a lot of rules, and I don't like rules a lot of time. It's just kind of like no. And so that was something I had to unlearn a lot about. What am I meant to be in my field? What career path I want.
I love that you said unlearn the rules. I have lived my life kind of, I feel like, doing what I thought I was supposed to do or what you're told to do, or, this is the correct path. And it wasn't until I would say the past, like, probably 2 years, and it really started. I started on this I don't want to call it like self awakening journey, like opening my eyes like to the real world in the past 2 years, where I was like, but you don't have to do that. like just because that's what you were told or that's what you saw or we're conditioned or programmed, like you don't have to do that. And like feel that tension or that lack of enjoyment in that and realize that that's not your path. So I think that's really interesting when you talk about unlearning. It's almost like the lies that we're told, the lies we tell ourselves, and unlearning all of that. And it's conditioning. We're programmed to operate a certain type of way to, I guess, succeed or whatever success is in this world. One of the things out that you said when we first met that like blew my mind that I have to talk about because I had never thought about this is how the pandemic and wearing masks impacted you and other members of the deaf community. Tell us all about that because I never thought about it and I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. I can't believe I didn't think about that.
It just can you repeat that question again?
Yeah, so you were telling me that wearing masks impacts the ability to communicate and for people that read lips. So talk to us about like because I didn't think about that. I was like, I know it's a big controversy over masking, but especially like even like if you're on the plane or something like that, and where you currently speaking as we're recording this, you still have to wear a mask if you're flying. So talk to us about how like that impacted your ability just to communicate.
I hate that way so much. I hate wearing the mask. Mask is very makes it very difficult, and people don't understand how a deaf person can listen and hear the words at the same time. So, for example, I give an example. I'm going to the store. What I will hear through the mask is "I'm the store." That's all I
Mhm.
hear. So I'm like trying, and then but because we deaf community a lip reader, we rely heavily on lip reading. So for us to hear the full sentence, your mask have to come down for us to hear the full sentence. I'm going to the store or I'm walking my dog. That's what we need. And a lot of times I do prevent going outside because I get frustrated with the people around me because I can't hear you. What's the point? Why am I gonna drain myself to really have a conversation with you in public? So a lot of people and a lot of deaf community I know don't even go outside. They haven't been outside in 2 years. That's what I hear. They'll go
Really?
outside. Yeah, they will go outside, walk the dog, but never interact with a hand person just because of the mask. And a lot of people didn't know that there was a lot of clear masks that they were not providing us. So it's very unfortunate. Same thing with the hospital. Hospitals did not have clear masks, but that's the number one thing that we need on our life. So it's very unfortunate.
Hmm. That, yeah, it's just something I never thought about, but it makes perfect sense in terms of making sure that everyone is able to communicate and they have all they need. That's so interesting to me. You also have a book. Talk to us about the book, how you came up with the title for the book, and what you want people to get from reading it.
Yeah, I do have a book coming out. It's called Every Day I Am Just Deaf. And it's basically my lifestyle, being deaf in the deaf I mean sorry, being deaf in the hand community. And so basically the book is mixed with poetry and biography, which is kinda cool. And I do speak a lot of poetry. I love poetry books. And I if you notice, have you read a book by a deaf author? No.
Never.
Voila! I'm here
It's
I'm
like
here
one and only.
I'm here to put the Band-Aid on with both deaf community, hand community to put together a Band-Aid, kind of get the hand community to understand what it's like to be deaf. Because a lot of time on social media platform, a lot of people follow us, but they don't have a better knowledge of what it's really like to be deaf. So that's why I'm doing my book, and my book is literally 95 pages. It's very short but very beautiful. And I promise you, some of you will cry because It made me cry too when I had to read it. And but yeah, so that is my book.
Awesome, awesome. And you want people that are reading it to get an understanding of what it's like to like walk, I guess, a day in your shoes, huh?
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And that is a great segue to how can everyone keep up with you, follow your journey, and find you online?
Everybody can find me on my Instagram where I'm most active the most. It's Def Queen Boss. And my website, which is KellinaEmpowerment.com, if you want to book a session with me. And if you want to book me for a speaking event or a podcast, you're more than welcome to check out my website because sometimes I don't always check my Instagram because there's so many messages. So, yeah.
Awesome, awesome. And the final question is, what is the greatest lesson you've learned in your reset journey?
I learned so many things to be honest, but I'm gonna say this one thing I learned is that if you don't use your voice or expand your voice, there'll be someone out there that needs your voice more than you know it.
I love that. Very profound. Someone's waiting on you. Someone needs what you have. So don't be quiet.
Exactly.
Love that. Love that. Thank you so much, Kalina. This was awesome. All right, everyone. Another phenomenal episode. I told you we're in for a treat. Again, share this message. We want you to like and subscribe on YouTube as well as anywhere you get your podcast. Someone needs to hear this. There's so many things that people have gone through in their lives that have challenged them, that have really made them open their eyes and see things from a different perspective, as well as the pandemic. Who knew that masks were impacting people that use lip reading as a way to communicate? Make sure you share this message. Someone needs to hear it. Remember, a reset is always available to you.